Welcome to Coruzant Technologies, home of the Digital Executive Podcast. Do you work in emerging tech, working on something innovative, maybe an entrepreneur? Apply to be a guest at www.coruzant.com/brand. Welcome to the Digital Executive. Today's guest is Pramin Pradeep. Pramin Pradeep is the co-founder and CEO of BotGauge AI, a US-based autonomous QA as a solution company redefining how modern software teams ensure quality at engineering speed. Using QA as a solution model, BotGauge redefines quality assurance for fast-growing engineering teams. It combines AI-native testing agents with forward-deployed QA pods to continually create, run, and maintain end-to-end tests with owned quality outcomes. With over a decade of deep experience in low-code ecosystems and enterprise QA transformation, Pramin has built his career at the intersection of automation and scalable software infrastructure. He previously helped scale a high-growth startup from inception to $3 million in revenue, contributing to its acquisition by SaaS Labs. Pramin has worked with leading enterprises including Adobe, Infosys, and Uncork to streamline software testing and quality operations. Well, good afternoon, Pramin. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely, my friend. I appreciate it. And I know you're generally based out of the Bay Area, San Francisco, California. I'm in Kansas City. Today you're traveling, I understand. So we'll just jump into it here. Pramin, let me ask you the first question here. You describe BotGauge as an autonomous QA as a solution company. What's fundamentally broken in traditional quality assurance models that require rethinking quality as a service rather than a function?
Yeah, great. So to understand that, we have to understand the history of the quality engineering or quality assurance as stage, right? So here, if you take before 10 years, every application which came into production, the release cycle, that is, every changes was happening once in 6 months, once in 3 months. However, as the development progressed, the customer expectations started increasing. They want more and more functionality. They wanted to get into the latest update, the user friendliness, everything started coming into picture. Because of that, the competition increased and the release pressure started increasing for all the SaaS companies. So from once in 6 months, it started reducing into once in 2 weeks, then once in a week, and once in an hour. So because of that, automation became more prominent. Before 10 years, if you ask anyone, they will try to say that, okay, well, a few companies are doing automation, maybe through Playwright script or maybe through Selenium and open source. However, right now, the need of the hour is for the QA to cope up with the shorter release cycles with prominent automation in place. For that, only the AI can be inbuilt into it, and it should inbuilt most rigorous way into any SaaS ecosystem for that to happen.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And you're absolutely right. I was a developer early in the days, and looking back, our QA was pretty strict, right? We had some really structured release cycles. And as you talked about, the release cycles were not very frequent, but as the demand for more enhancements, more functionality came about, QA, it was hard to keep up with the QA, and I totally get that. But what you've done is really brought an autonomous level of quality at a faster scale, a faster turnaround. So I appreciate that. And Pramin, BotGauge combines AI native testing agents with forward deployed QA pods. How does that hybrid model improve speed, reliability, and ownership compared to purely automated or purely manual testing approaches?
Yeah. So I have been in this space for more than 10 years now. So seeing the journey from an open source automation to low-code automation using NLP through the AI world, right? Right now, what is happening, just handing over the agents or AI agents to the companies is not going to work because every SaaS or every software is different and go through a lot of customization. So the learning process is very important for any agents which get integrated into their ecosystem. So for that, what we have done different is like we enhance our agents and deploy into their ecosystem. However, a forward deployed engineer has to monitor and analyze the agent in such a way that whether it is learning in the right format, whether it's crossing the boundary condition or not. So all those things has to be constrained. All those constraints have to be kept in mind. That's why we not only deploy the agents, there's a forward deployed engineer which monitors end-to-end operation of the agents and also provide inputs if you're deviating from the path. So that's why it is very important to have both agents and the human in the loop to make sure the customer is able to get the right output. So here the output is nothing but an increased coverage in a shorter period of time. Just giving you numbers in place, right? Consider they just go with the open source core, low code tool, which is available in the market. At least the customer is going to take around 4 to 5 months to reach 80% coverage. However, with the agents which you have built and the human in the loop, you'll be able to do it in 2 weeks of time. So that's the kind of onboarding of test cases and the coverage you'll be able to implement in any ecosystem compared to the traditional methodology which is there in place. So it's an increased efficiency, increased coverage, which will support their release cycles, and they can reduce the release cycle from 2 weeks to 2 days with the kind of deployment which we do it in their infrastructure.
Thank you. And you're right. You highlighted that hybrid model, efficiency, quality, faster turnaround times. That learning process for AI agents does take some time to learn, and you want to make sure that it's accurate. And I like how you use this hybrid model of having that human in the loop. You mentioned that forward deployed engineer to actually monitor and make sure that it stays within its parameters. So I appreciate the insights. And Pramin, many engineering teams prioritize shipping features quickly. Why do you believe the next decade of innovation will be defined by autonomous quality infrastructure rather than faster coding alone?
Yeah. So that's a very interesting question, Brian, because right now, if you see from a development standpoint of view, there are multiple companies addressing that problem statement. Like some call it as vibe coding, right? Increased level of coding enhancement through prompts, everything which is happening. However, once the speed of coding is entertained by the ecosystem, right? However, they're not able to release into production because of QA being the bottleneck. Because customers, as you rightly know, they don't accept bugs or any flow broken. Once that is done, they'll just shift to competition. So that becomes the most important point. And end of the day, it's not about writing the code. They release into the prod and customers should start using it. For that, end-to-end regression has to be done. That's why it's important to have an autonomous QA framework integrated into any infrastructure to support these release cycles in place. So what I want to tell the dev community, yes, writing the code is much important. However, the most important part is shipping to the customer to get the feedback loop established. For that, you have to tightly integrate the autonomous QA also into the framework.
Thank you. Appreciate that. You did highlight some things that are happening at all different levels of sizes of organizations, but the speed of AI agents with this low code, this no code, QA is definitely the bottleneck right now, and people can't wait for things. It's just kind of how we are in our human nature. But you highlighted the fact that having that develop and integrate those autonomous agents in that QA process will help speed this along. And obviously we want to have quality output, of course. So I appreciate that. And Pramin, the last question of the day, as BotGauge scales following its recent funding round, what will separate autonomous QA platforms that truly deliver outcomes from those that simply layer AI on top of legacy workflows?
Yeah. So it's like you cannot modify the existing infrastructure and trying to make it AI by just adding a layer to it, right? You need to build everything from scratch, especially if you're going for AI first companies. For example, the traditional players where their code is already written and they're not able to even, let me touch upon one of the major pain point in automation, that is self-healing, maintenance. When a element moves around or change or the flow changes, right now the traditional framework cannot cope up with it. This kind of autonomous being the nature, that means the initial algo has to be written for AI. That's why it's very important for any AI first companies to build from scratch, then adding a layer on top of the existing infra. That's what BotGauge is. So BotGauge is an AI-born company where we just started in the AI LLM era, where all the code, not only the LLM infrastructure layer, but also the algo to support that has been written from scratch to enhance the agents from the first learning approach. How can it refine from the, or how can it refine to the most extreme level of learning the end-to-end application in a shorter period of time?
Thank you. Really appreciate that. And you did talk a little bit about, especially with your company, but AI companies in general and AI platforms, it is best to build everything from scratch. If you're building that type of infrastructure, as you know, there are problems with adding multiple layers or adding AI layer just on top of legacy workflows. Obviously, that is going to add more complexity and more problems down the road. So again, I appreciate you teasing that apart for us. And Pramin, it was such a pleasure having you on today, and I look forward to speaking with you real soon.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me to this podcast, Brian, and appreciate. Yeah, we'll catch you in person after.
Bye for now.